Hello, my beautiful besties, and welcome to another episode of the M Take. Today's episode features a very special guest. It's one that Mel and I have been manifesting for a while now. Eve Rodsky is a New York Times bestselling author of her books Fair Play and Find Your Unicorn Space. She's a motivational speaker and a chief organization expert, best known for redefining how couples share responsibilities at home. She created the Fair Play method, a practical and fun system designed to help partners rebalance domestic labor and make the invisible work of running a household more visible, valued, and shared. She comes on the M-Take and shares her takes on what it actually means to be fair players. We also talk about the low emotion, high cognition frameworks and the power of using that in those high emotion moments. We talk about the art of gift giving. We talk about how to communicate more effectively, to reduce resentment, and how to build more equitable partnerships at home, and of course, so much more. So come listen as Eve Rodsky joins our unicorn space on this very special episode of the M-Take.
Eve Rodsky, welcome to the M-Take podcast. How are you?
Hi guys. It's so good to meet you. Like I was saying earlier, I got to learn a little bit about you online. So it's fun to meet you in person.
We're so excited to have you here. And admittedly, I'll speak for myself.
No.
So
this is a shared thing
right now. This is like, we're kind of super fans. Like and then we're not just saying that. Like, this is a really big deal. I think next to Harry Styles himself being on here, this is like real. I'm going to have trouble speaking a lot.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm the ghost of your Christmas future. So let me continue to be the ghost of your Christmas future. Oh my God.
I love that. I love
it.
that. No, seriously though, Eve, we called this our unicorn space. And
Yay.
it's our spiritual gym. It's our unicorn space that we developed when we became moms because we needed it for ourselves. And we say, like, if we make just one person feel less alone from our conversations, like, we've accomplished it.
I love that so much. And I think what's so fun is because you already know the 101 terms, we can really get into some of the science and data so that we can
this is my emotional support.
But yeah, so absolutely love that you have the 101 knowledge, because then we can really nerd out. We can get, people don't have to just believe us because we speak the way men do and just espouse whatever their opinion. That we're talking here through data. And now, let's see, my first research article on this was 2011. So I've been doing this for 15 years. It's crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We were saying prior to, us, this is like a year in the making. I was so persistent.
Yes.
We have
Thank you, Michelle.
No, of course. But we have.
And I'm sorry we had to recancel. This gets back to just how hard it is to exist in this world, try to be political, try to have multiple hats, and also be caregivers,
Exactly. And that's why the apology is not accepted, Eve.
Yes.
We have a M-Take and manifesto list. We're an infancy podcast. Again, we're doing this for us. It's our unicorn space. But we love to dream. We love to manifest it. And we have a list. And your name was one of the first on there. And you're the first guest on there to be with us. So thank you for saying yes. And thank you so much for being here with us
And
today.
by the way, for you to get through my team means you're doing something right.
Yes.
Like we see the most amazing women, and it's not like they're screening, but as we all know, the whole premise of Fair Play is that our time is diamonds. You guys are, in the right space, and thank you for your work, because we're all cultural warriors here. And if I could just say one thing before we start, I think the hardest thing for me, and we'll talk about what it's like to be an expert on the gender division of labor and how that was not on my third grade when you want to be when you grow up board. But now that I'm an expert on the gender division of labor, what I realize is that we could be talking about the frustration of women in that their partners are not putting the garbage liner back in their garbage can. But what we're actually doing by you setting up a boundary and holding this for your unicorn space, and for me being out there explaining what a gender division of labor is we're like the antidote to 2,000 years of religious conditioning. I think what we're doing is so much bigger than we even realize we're doing. We are not just speaking to women. We're not just helping them getting through a hard time. We are literally the antidote to 2,000 years of what women have been told to do with their time. So thank you for your part in that.
I have chills.
Yeah,
Yes,
same.
yes. We always say
100%.
like the impact in our universe.
impact, yes,
We'll send you a mug. It'll be
I
great
love
for
it.
your
I
morning
love it.
coffee.
I love it.
But one of our other takes of this space is a lot of our friends, a lot of our listeners are always kind of battling with two competing and conflicting thoughts all the time, like as mothers, as wives, as people. And Mel and I have found that, we got to make it light. We got to make it humorous. We got to find the name it to tame it method of all of this through life.
Yes.
So our take on this is called Two Truths, No Lies, not to be confused with Two Truths and a Lie.
Yes.
It's just kind of holding two competing, conflicting thoughts. And a quick anecdote before we toss it to you, because we want to hear what you've brought to our Two Truths, No Lies table today. But personal story connected to you. Back in 2023, I was returned from work, from maternity leave after I had my second son, and I commuted to New York City. And it was like 4 p.m. I was driving on the West Side Highway, listening to you on Dr. Becky's podcast, hysterically crying. And I remember you saying the words that you actually say, like, change the game for you. And you're like, this doesn't do long-term planning, but you're like, figure it out was the worst thing. But I have to tell you, Eve, it helped me figure it out. It helped me decide, no, I can't do that anymore. I will never forget it. My nipples are hard just talking about it. But honestly,
make me cry.
No, it's the impact, right? Like, these are the micro stories that you have enabled in all of us. And
Thank you.
I just couldn't wait another second without telling it to you. And I'm so grateful that I get to tell it to you directly.
Well, thank you. And I think we're the legacy, right? We're the legacy of, for your listeners who don't know me. This started with me search. Research is me search, right? I'm a lawyer. I work for a big corporation. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a sociologist. My mother is. But I was just somebody whose husband sent them a text that said, I'm surprised you didn't get blueberries. Also, not on the West Side Highway. I mean, I'm from 14th Street and Avenue C, but I live in LA now. But the same way that you were driving, the same way I was sobbing on the side of a road in a car, alone, thinking to myself, I'm the fulfiller of my husband's smoothie needs. My husband sends me a text. I'm surprised you didn't get blueberries. And Mel and Michelle, your listeners, we can all picture the scene because it's similar to your scene, right? It was the breast pump and diaper bag in the passenger seat of my car. It was a gift, to return for the new baby in the back seat of the car. It was my hostile workplace that was telling me if I was going to return, because it was an open floor plan, that I would have to pump in a stairwell or bring a battery pack because there was no outlet for me. I mean, how hard could it be to install an outlet? But, you just it's these microaggressions, like you said, where your workplace is abandoning you. You feel so alone. And then your partner, who's supposed to be, all the societal conditioning is we're supposed to not talk shit about our partners, right? They suck after women married to men. The men suck after kids. And I just think if someone had just told me that this was systemic, that men on average do 5 to 15 hours a week less after children come, that your egalitarian husband, becomes somebody you don't recognize, it would have helped me so much. It would have helped me. It would have helped me help you even better because I would have started earlier, Michelle.
Yeah.
It was so painful to blame it on myself at that time in 2011. That's why we joked, in the beginning, I am the ghost of your Christmas future. And I was, because I don't ever want any woman to live like that again. I will speak about this to the day I die, because I never want a woman to feel that she's the fulfiller of her husband's smoothie needs, and that she has to hide in shame that things aren't working out for her after her child came, because it's so much of all of our realities. And it really stems through class, it stems through gender, and it stems through countries. Because fair play is now, it started off as my blueberries breakdown, but we're a movement that have millions of touch points in 27 countries now.
Amazing.
And I think we've been translated into over 15 languages, maybe more now. That was as of like 2022. We just got translated into French, which was very exciting. French men were behind the 8 ball, and then Giselle Pilico, that's from the side. She was the woman who went through the horrific gang rape by 50 men. The country had a reckoning around gender, and then all of a sudden they wanted to publish Fair Play. So we are a big movement. But really it starts in places like this. It starts with the women who are listening to you, Mel and Michelle, and you have to keep going because, as I said, if you don't, then other women are going to be on the West Side Highway or crying over blueberries in their car.
Yes.
Yeah, and your work has been so powerful because it's really given a permission slip to this generation that it doesn't have to be suck it up and figure it out and be appeasing. It also doesn't have to be like, excuse my French, but like, fuck my husband, he's the worst. I guess I'm just going to have to live this way. And like, I'm just going to vent into a void constantly about what my situation is. And that's not helpful either. There's this in-between of solution where it gives autonomy and permission and empowerment to be in control of your own destiny as it comes to being a partner and being an individual and what that looks like. And I can't even begin to tell you the number of times, like it's so ingrained into Michelle and I just individually, but also this space where we're referencing things that even when we're sitting here getting like prepped on like, okay, so like, oh my gosh, we're having this conversation. We can't even like prep for it because it's like, this is just what we do all day, every day.
Make
and
the invisible visible is like our lexicon.
Exactly.
And by the way, I bet you Fair Play seeped into the way you work together on the podcast, right? Because I can't imagine that Mel, you're not saying to Michelle that, hey, what should I be doing today? I'll wait here till you tell me what to do for the podcast, right? You are partners.
Oh, girl. We
in the
got
production.
Systems, communication, and boundaries. We are a product of you, Eve.
Great. Amazing.
That is...
If only every relationship in life could be like this one, let me tell you.
You just said it. You said the magic words, right? If you already know, like I said, you're like Fair Play 3.0, because if you not just know that the home is an organization or that even your podcast is an organization, but that Mel and Michelle know that boundary systems and communication is the Fair Play secret formula, then you really do just have to be on the road with me. Like, you just
Sounds
really
good. Sign me up.
You will be surrogates now.
Please. We love nothing more. And we want to download with you too, Eve, of like your systems. Like we get a lot of gusto internally to like have people's hearts downloaded, have people's brains downloaded. Like what are your go-to systems in your day-to-day right now? I know you said you're the ghost of, what did you say? The ghost of our...
Ghost of your Christmas future. Yes.
And we lean heavily in our unicorn space of phases and stages. And we know I have 2 little boys right now, 3 and 5. Mel just had a baby in October and she has a 3-year-old as well. So you're really speaking to like your 2011 to 2013-year-old self. And now being on the other side of that, like what advice do you have and we want to hear like your systems and get nerdy about that too.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, thank you for that. I live by a boundary systems and communication formula. I do. And I think we can break it down by all 3. So I think number 1, let's go to communication, because this gets to our 2 truths and like not a lie. I think you said something interesting about the 2 truths, which I love, which is that you can live a both and. You can live a both and. And I think what's interesting about how you frame it is that they can be conflicting ideas, but I want to also challenge you both and say that I think with a both and, a lot of times for women, it's not necessarily conflicting ideas. So let me explain what I mean. A lot of times there are 2 truths in women's life that they hold. So I'll give you an example. I want to be on the road promoting my 2nd book. And I have a 3-year-old that anytime I go away, she tells the people in her pod that I'm dead. So those are 2 truths. right? I'm dead and I want to be on the road, right?
Like, I can't.
So I don't think those are conflicting ideas, right? Those are two truths. So what do you do when it's not conflicting ideas, when you have two truths and you have to make a decision? And this is where, if you've heard Becky, Dr. Becky and I speak together, we align on this so perfectly, which is that when you have two truths and you have to make a decision, the thing that resonated for Becky about the fair play research was that so many women were making their decisions out of guilt and shame. They were making their decisions. So I want to go on my book tour. Anna says I'm dead. And so because of that, because I feel guilt, right? I think it's guilt. But really, guilt is not when two things are true. Guilt is like, Becky talks about, I say, it's like when you yell, you maybe bark at a teacher because your kid has a bad grade. Becky says it's like when you yell at your Uber driver because they're late for the airport. You feel bad because that's not who you are. That can be guilt. I feel guilty I yelled at my Uber driver. But when you have two things that are not guilt, like what is it? I'm not feeling guilt because I'm leaving Anna, because I know that I want to be on the road, and I also know that I want to be with her and her not to call me dead. So instead, what I ask people to do is hold those two truths, but take out other people's discomfort. So if I'm not thinking about Anna's discomfort, I would probably go on the road. And so I would like women to make those decisions from their two truths. Understand that a lot of times it's not conflicting ideas. It's just two things. And we're more likely to make the decision to succumb to other people's discomfort.
Wow.
So I felt that it was important to, because that's what I was thinking about when you asked about the two truths.
Yes.
And so, and by the way, that gets into how I make decisions now.
Of course.
I make decisions, my systems, my boundaries, and my communication. If we go back, I was going to start with communication, but actually this leads very nicely into boundaries. I can set boundaries because I hold those two truths together, and I make the decision, we're stripping out someone else's discomfort, and then I decide what's most important to me at the time. It's a little bit easier as kids get older to not feel as much pain from your child's discomfort. Because a teenager who's like, go fuck yourself is easier to leave.
You're like, fine, bye.
Right, I'm like, go, bye. All right, I'll never see you again. It's easier to leave than the 3-year-old who's saying you're dead. So I will say that's good. Over time, it's going to be easier for you to make decisions without other people's discomfort. So that's, but then in terms of the systems, I'm very much still a fair player. I mean, Seth and I go back to the cards a lot. I think to me, the most important thing about a system is that it's a practice. I think the hardest thing is people are scared of the word system. They think it's somehow contrary to love. They get scared when I say the home is an organization. But really, an organization is just people in the same space making decisions collectively towards a common goal.
Right.
That's
You're
how I
naming
would.
it. You're naming
That's how
it.
I would define an organization. And so we are having a common goal. Hopefully we have shared values. Hopefully we're trying to raise these children together. We're trying to have a family with some version of grace and humor and generosity. So I will say that grace and humor and generosity in my family is probably like the guiding post for our systems. And the system is an ownership mindset. So I think you probably heard me say this, but your listeners probably wouldn't have. But I just want to get into the data of why I believe so strongly in the fair play system. Not just that it works and that we have a big USC study to show that, and it does. But what makes me excited about the system is that every year, Mel and Michelle, that I see more organizational management scholarship come out about the best run organizations in the world, the more I believe in fair play. It's not rocket science. It's based on organizational principles that the best companies put into place, which is a DRI mindset. My Aunt Marion's Mahjong group has more clearly defined expectations than than most homes, right? You don't bring snack twice to that group, you're out. Most homes, as you said, Michelle, are moving from a figure it out mindset. And it's really dangerous to do that because patriarchy then fills that void. And in gay couples, money fills that void, meaning the person who earns more money usually does less. So instead of that, we like to say systems based on your values are just a much better way to make decisions and live. And so as I see organizations thrive, the best organizations are still using what I call a DRI mindset, a directly responsible individual mindset, where someone owns a project from start to finish. It doesn't mean people can't come in the planning, but that someone will own it. And I sort of recently, we had a Passover Seder, and Seth was having a lot more leisure time during the Seder, and I got so mad at him. And then he reminded me that spirituality, I do hold that card right now. I hold the hosting card, and it was my ownership. And it's really not for me to delegate the execution to him. Like, that is not how fair play works. Again, if I had come to him in advance and had him as part of the planning, and then it would have been different. But I was sort of doing the opposite of what fair play is at the Seder. I was like making him grab the matzah and having him grab chairs. And it just was, he's like, this is just not fair play. And so we have to go back to the cards all the time, because it's so much easier to go back to the systemic way that women do things, which is that women hold the mental load. They hold the conceiving and the planning of tasks, and men come in at the execution. So how did I know that was a systemic problem and why I believe in fair play? Because I start to ask couples, how does mustard get in your refrigerator? As you may know, but and if anyone's seen our documentary, this is my favorite question, because it was the same in mainland China and Norway. Women married to men are the ones who heard from their doctor, the pediatrician, that their son was iron deficient. They conceived of a plan to get their son iron by dousing the meat into French's yellow mustard. They get the stakeholder buy-in from their family for what they need on the grocery list. I mean, they didn't say stakeholder buy-in, but that's what I'm listening for. And I was able in 27 countries to hear the same pattern over and over. Women conceive, women plan, women monitor, which is part of planning because they have to know whether the mustard's running low to get more. And then men step in, right, to go to the grocery store. They're bringing home the spicy Dijon every fucking time. We ask for yellow. But that's what I love about fair play, because at the end of the day, it's a system that is based on keeping that conception, planning, and execution together. Doesn't always work, but the more that someone holds an ownership mindset, the more their standards increase. And the more standards increase, the more you gain accountability and trust in your home. And that formula has never, I've never veered from that formula. It's not always perfect, but if you get close to ownership mindset, where you build the muscle of accountability and trust in your home, even if till this day, 15 years later, I'm still telling Seth to go get the matzah and the chairs, but we revisit and go back to our communication patterns of emotion is low, cognition is high, check-ins, right, and we reset. Unfortunately, it's like exercise. A system is practice. You cannot go to your doctor and say you exercised once in 2005 and you're still physically fit. You can't say you did the cards once or you heard about fair play and now your life's better. It doesn't work that way. Good things come with practice. Long answer, but that's what I would say.
When the low emotion, high cognition was truly such a game changer in my household. I'm a very emotional person when I get reacted. Like, I'm very reactive, and my husband is not, so that's fun. But still screaming into the void sometimes.
Right, how you're getting big and the avoidant. Most women who are the feedback in the moment people are married to avoidant men. And so all of a sudden, I said Seth is like the meme of Homer in the bushes. Or do you know that where he just starts like stepping back in the bush? That's it. Yes.
But it was really huge because it not only allowed me to really think about when was the right time to approach it, but also how wrong I was going about it to begin with. So it really, like, I would pause and reflect upon, okay, is this the right time to bring it up? And usually the answer is no. And then it also gave me time to be like, what am I actually bringing up right now? And then come back when I'm in a better spot to have that conversation. And also it helped us to establish routines and rituals and systems that allowed for that. Like our bi-weekly admin on Sunday. Again, this has evolved and we don't do it anymore because that's the point of this. But we when it was just my daughter and she would nap, for the middle of the day on Saturdays and Sundays, every other Sunday, we would sit down for 45 minutes. We'd go through the mail. We'd go through this. We would look at the calendars. My husband travels at the time I was commuting. Like, what are the supports we have in place? Who's owning what? And it felt really good. And we were in such a good groove. And then things change. Someone gets pregnant and also has to nap at those times on the weekends.
Yes.
And now we're in a flow period and we're in a transition. I just literally went back to work this week. And the buildup has been kind of nuts. And it's like you hear yourself and I'm like, what? I am not this wife or person or mother that's like, I'm doing all this. What have you done? Like, and it's just, why are we here? And that's when, to your point, you got to go back to the cards.
Go back to the cards.
Figuratively or literally.
We
gotta
for
go
me.
back to the, we got to go back to the cards.
Yes. And by the way, the fair play system is also predicated that there are times where you're holding a wild card. And so you were holding two, right? A new baby and then a return to work. So the reason why we bring that up, right, is because we want women to not feel shame that things may be going off the rails. When you're holding a wild card, it's more likely you're going to communicate when emotion is high and cognition is low because we don't have the bandwidth and we explode, right? I'll give an example of something funny. I love that people send me data from all over the country, but during COVID, there's a Facebook group that someone sent me. They have 27,000 members. It's called The Reasons I Hate My Husband During COVID. And the reason why this person, like I said, it was out of the UK. The reason why this person brought it up to me was because there was one post that she thought was the opposite of emotion is low, cognition is high. The woman said, if my husband dies during COVID, it's because of me, not the disease. And so I was like, she must have had a lot of emotion if she wrote this. Publicly. And so I reached out to her. We had a lot of time on our hands back then. And I reached out to her through Facebook Messenger and asked her, how does she communicate about domestic life? I said, I'm a researcher in these States. And how does she communicate about domestic life? And she wrote back, oh, thanks so much for the question. We don't communicate. This is my safe space. So if anyone's struggling with communicating with our partners, let's just remember that this woman felt that publicly threatening to murder her spouse in front of 27,000 strangers felt safer to her than bringing it up with her partner.
My goodness.
That's how hard it is to communicate about domestic life. That's how painful it can be because we are so sad and resentful and stressed, right? And then, God forbid, your partner invalidates it. It's almost easier to then revert to the toxic time messages, which are, as you know, in the time it would take me to tell Seth what to do, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
Or that I'm a better multitasker and I'm wired differently to hear the baby cry. Or he makes more money than me, so I should be doing this. Or we're both colorectal surgeons. That was one of my favorite quotes I ever wrote down. I write analog with a pen, and I remember writing, I can't believe I'm actually writing this. We're both colorectal surgeons. My partner is better at focusing on one task at a time, and I can find the time. We're not Albert Einstein, right? There's no way to find time. But there are different expectations over how women are supposed to use our time. And if we can't communicate about these things, then we do fall back into patriarchal systems where we believe our time is infinite, like sand, and men's time is finite, like diamonds. And then we protect our partner's time. And the place I see it the most, actually, it's obviously when health systems say breastfeeding is free because, it's an 1,800-hour-a-year job. And it's only free if you don't value women's time, right?
Yeah.
But I see it a lot, actually, with thank you notes. It's very rare that men hold that emotional labor task. And it's my new obsession. My new research project is trying to understand why. And it's been very interesting. A lot of protecting of men's time because it's a slog and it takes a lot of time and a lot of accountability and trust and thinking their partner doesn't value thank you notes or it won't get done. It's been very interesting, but it's a lot of women protecting men's time.
And I think underneath the surface there too, there's the acknowledgement and the gratitude underneath a note of thanks.
Well, because you're a fair player, you would go straight to the values.
Totally.
Most people don't. Yes. And
That's
if you
fascinating.
believe in fair play, you know that to onboard, you have to come up with a minimum standard of care, which you do through your values. Right. And so instead of looking at a thank you note, you're looking at what's underlying that minimum standard of care. Do we value gratitude? That's the question. When it's dishes, how clean, do we value cleanliness? And what does clean look like? So when you bring it down to the why, it becomes a lot easier to get on the same page. But people who are not familiar with fair play, when I ask them who does, thank you notes in your home, it's just, again, it's a lot of, it's women feeling uncomfortable for asking men to do a task that is tedious and that takes a lot of time.
It makes me think, and again, Mel and I are subscribed to this. Like, I just love hearing you say, and when you were sharing the Passover anecdote, like naming, like, this is not fair play right now. Like,
right, that's what we said.
I love that. I'm going to start naming it like that. We're a big name it to tame it type of fam over here.
Love it.
But I think there's such value, and it's kind of like a dovetail from the low emotion, high cognition to the proactivity as opposed to the reactivity.
Yes.
My husband and I have our shared calendar, and while I am the person to put it on, I own that. Again, the ownership there.
You're owning it.
I'm owning it.
You're the calendar keeper, card holder. Yep.
But we hold each other accountable quarterly to sit down and make the invisible visible. This is our fair play night, and we're going to deal it out. And you have to make it fun. I had a girlfriend who purchased the cards, which now she just celebrated a milestone anniversary and purchased the cards. And she's like, I wish I had this before we got married. Yeah. And now I give this to people as a part of their wedding registry. Because these are the conversations. Mel and I are positive realists. That's what we preach on this space. Yes. And we're going to be positive, but we're also going to see the rainstorm through the rainbow too. And this is a way to make it visible before you're in that reactive state, right? And that's what it's all about. So I kind of got on a tangent. I was just excited to kind of tell you.
But think about how what you're doing obviously is helpful to that couple, but as we said, we're combating 2,000 years of and the new recycling of those messages, which is the trad wife stuff that we're hearing. So you're not only doing that, you're combating that, but I do have to believe that the work we're doing to bring this out into the world, right? I do think that your generation and the generation that comes behind you, I think they will have heard of the mental load. Yeah. I think they will have heard of the invisible work. I think these terms that were completely foreign to me in my generation, I at least believe that they are in the lexicon today and weaponized incompetence. I think people know, or even kin keeping. There are terms that I think that women are now familiar with, which is a huge breakthrough. Because the only thing I heard in 2011 was that I had to bank my kid's cord blood, and that my child was the size of a jelly bean on what to expect when you're expecting website. That was all. There was no podcast. There was no social media. And this is only in 2011, right? I mean, I'm not that much older than you. I'm turning 50 this year. And it's that recently. I mean, I was born in 1976, the year where the banks rolled out applications without men's name on it for women. So it's not that long ago. Right. It's only 50 years ago that women couldn't take out a credit card without their father or their husband. So I have to feel, back to your practical optimism ideas, I also feel good that I can be a realist and understand that we will continue to backslide unless we're out there fighting. But on the other hand, that we have so much more awareness today than we did in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any other, we're big on modeling, right?
Yes,
so even when it might feel easier for us in those moments just to power through, we're like, okay, well then what example are we setting for our children? So if anything at all, let's put the work in today for that purpose. Are there any there's fair play, all these words that we're dropping right now, anything specifically that comes to mind for you when thinking about modeling for future generations, whether it's your family or younger sisters or so on and so forth, in what we should be really opening our eyes to walking into these long-term relationships and partnerships?
Great. I'll do a couple just based on our data. Well, obviously modeling men writing thank you notes is going to be my most practical one now. And it's so fun because the people who know me, when I send them gifts, their partners men always send the thank you notes back now. So I think they're afraid of me, but it's good. So to me, it's about, I think it's fun. Let's take a little bit of deep dive into the cards.
Let's do
Great.
it.
So for your listeners who don't know Fair Play as well as you guys do, there are 4 suits, and those 4 suits are actually intentional. So there's a caregiving suit, there's a magic suit, there's a home suit, and there's an out suit. And the reason why it's divided up that way, and you may not even know this, hopefully I'm giving you some new information about Fair Play, but it's modeled that way based on a toxic time message that men were giving to women, which is that if you're so overwhelmed, get help. So that one message, it's a more privileged message, but I heard it a lot, was the idea that a woman would get help from another woman. So when I can't do it, a vagina would replace another vagina, often a black and brown vagina who's paid less. And so there's there's many problematic layers of that man's message. If you're so overwhelmed, get help. So what I was hoping was that I could explain that there were in our data all the way back from 2011, there were still 50 cards that women identified as non-outsourceable. So even if you're in a relationship where you say, well, I feel so bad asking my partner for something because I have a nanny, that doesn't work because you're still responsible for 50 cards that you and your partner have to navigate. And so I think that I want to bring that up because I think that is, besides men doing thank you notes, we'll talk practically about how we can really look at the granular nature of what I call the caregiving and the magic cards. And those are cards that are harder to, like Michelle talked about calendar keeper. I talked about hosting. Like we're bringing the card vernacular into the space. I said, we talked about dishes earlier. But the harder ones are the caregiving and the magic cards. So what I would say in terms of frameworks is really have fun with the caregiving and magic cards. I'll give you one quick example of what I mean by that, a practical example. And this probably will resonate with you both because you have experience with Fair Play. But I think for those who don't, you can realize how like even speaking these terms, like you said, making the invisible visible and using this is not fair play, even if you're not perfect in your practice, no one's perfect in a practice of exercise or health. We're doing our best. But this couple, and I call them Richard and Amy because I haven't gotten permission yet to use their real names. I still keep forgetting because I love this story so much, but I keep forgetting to ask them. But they're a couple that plays Fair Play. But I love how they describe it. So what they realized was that Richard, this is second marriage, and they have 2 kids. Richard was way more involved with his second marriage kids than his first. So he was already really good at being a card holder, owning tasks. But he specialized, as he said, in home and out. So he transported the kids to school every single day, often picked them up, flexible job. He was great at dishes, holding all the meal cards, packing kids' lunches. Already, like people would probably panic if they have a bare minimum husband because you're like, what is happening here, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I did not have someone who did that when I had my blueberries breakdown. But what he realized was that they did go back, and this is where the data came, how important those caregiving magic cards. They went back to look at those cards specifically. And he realized that Amy held pretty much all the emotional labor. So emotional labor, the way I describe it, is something where someone else's emotions are involved. So thank you note, right? Where someone else would be sad if they weren't thanked, or if you would be punished for it. It's your mother-in-law and you're a terrible person because you didn't send a handwritten thank you note. Where there's someone else's emotions. And look, you could say with garbage, there's someone else's emotions involved. Because for me, I grew up in a hoarder's household, so having no garbage in the bin is emotional too. But what I'm saying is that the caregiving magic allow you to bring up these. And so one of the cards is the magical beings card. And Richard decides he's going to take some of the magic cards. And it's like gestures of love, bringing the flowers to a recital, all those things. He becomes a tooth fairy, and he tells me a story about how when his daughter lost her second tooth, the tooth fairy didn't come. And back to Melissa, what we were talking about in terms of how we communicate. So Amy is like us, or at least how I perceive you to be from what you said.
Yeah.
Like me. She's a verbal assassin. And so what I loved is that they were reflective enough, which I think Mel and Michelle, you would be too, because you know the fair play system well enough. They knew it well enough to reflect on what would have gone wrong in this scenario when the tooth fairy didn't come if they weren't already in the fair play system. So if Richard had said he would be the tooth fairy and there was no context for that, it was just I take on a task and not in the system, then Amy wouldn't have known that you're supposed to carry through your mistakes. Richard wouldn't have known to take accountability. So this is what happens post fair play. Richard says, I fucked up. That's the first thing he says. His daughter comes into the room. The tooth fairy didn't come. He slept through his alarm, the 12 midnight alarm, whenever he was going to put it under the pillow, the money. He slept through. He says, I messed up. Amy then tells me because Richard immediately said, I fucked up, she doesn't go into verbal assassin mode. She said she would have in the past said things like, I will never trust you again. All or nothing communication. You ruined our child's magic. I knew you couldn't do it. You know, that's the word she would have used. She doesn't. She holds her tongue. She waits for a time when emotion is low and cognition is high, which was not in the moment. So she just says, look, I trust you to carry through your mistake. Richard tells me that he emails toothfairy@gmail.com, says, what happened to to your money? Where are you? In the middle of his day, his work day, he gets a response. There's a response from toothfairy@gmail.com saying, I'm so sorry. There's supply chain issues. I'm working on a backlog of teeth. He prints out the email for his daughter. She sees the email from toothfairy@gmail.com. And he says, and then he adds, if the tooth fairy's late, you get double the money. That's the whole story. But I see so many differences in how they communicated and how he was able to take accountability, how that allowed her to trust him to carry through his mistake, how he now tells that story because it's a fun story, how he's still the tooth fairy for his daughter, and he wouldn't have been if she had taken away that task for him. And that to me is how you ask for practical strategies. I think any of those things in that story is a practical application of fair play, right? Waiting to let someone carry through their mistake. Having someone understand your why. They both agreed on magic was important to them. Understanding the division of labor in your home. That at that point, Richard was doing most of the manual labor, but none of the emotional labor. That's sort of, to me, how fair play works. You can sort of pick what you want to work on. Maybe, Mel, you're going back to work right now. Maybe you don't have time to really hand over emotional labor. Maybe what you really need right now is just someone to do all the practical stuff for you. The transporting the kids, picking up when your kid is sick, because you don't want to leave your job, because you don't want them to think you're always leaving when your kid is sick, as women get penalized for being mothers. Whatever it is, it may not be that emotional labor. They're at a different stage, but you can be more reflective about what type of help. And I don't mean you get help. I mean, what type of partnership you need at this point.
I have to share an anecdote with you from a couple weeks ago. And for legal reasons, anyone listening at my current employer, this isn't true. This is made up. I was doing some interviews.
Just an anecdote.
During maternity leave. It's fine. And I had this one interview, and the job would require me to go into the city, which I used to do. Totally moved to the remote team recently at my current job, but used to do all the time. And when I tell you in this hour conversation, the way in which she came back to the question, are you sure you are willing to come to the city 5 days a week? As a mom, you have kids, you're just had a young child. And I got off and I was just so perturbed by it all. Like, it really, and at first I didn't really register. Like, I was just like, okay, like I'm a 35-year-old woman. I'm not going to sit in an interview and like fluff through the job requirements. Like, I'm here for a reason. But then it was, what really upset me was when I was like, if my husband were in that interview, they might have asked one time, hey, job requires you to be here 5 days a week in the office. He would say, yep, loud and clear. it would not have been touched again. And it's this concept of like, you hear everyone refer to working mothers, working mom. No one's ever called my husband a working dad.
Right.
Like, oh, he's a working dad. No, he's him at work,
yes.
and he's a dad at home.
Yep.
And it was that moment where it really like sent me on like a positive spiral in a sense of like, okay, well, that's like a flag that I'm going to avoid that with a 10-foot pole. But also, you know, just what this autonomy and this fire that it lit inside of me, that I am a grown woman that can agree to certain terms, whether it's within my household, whether it's within my personal life, whether it's in the professional world.
I love that.
And have autonomy on that. And you know what? If I did take that job and I did realize 6 months down the road that actually this is way more, things don't feel like they should right now, I would also have autonomy to say, you know what? I thought I could and I can't. And I think that's like the biggest thing right now that I'm seeing unfold with a lot of just within my community of my friends and women that are our age and parents that are our age that are particularly maybe the birthing parent or share the more of the things that we're talking about within the household is this not giving ourselves permission to be just one in one domain and having to wear all those hats 100% of the time, unlike our partners in most cases that don't have to share that requirement. And it's really, really, really challenging. You could do all the work and it can still hit you like a brick wall.
Yes.
And your child can say you're dead.
Yeah,
and then your child can walk around saying, "Oh," and they're like, "Whoa, I hope she's still around." Yeah, like
literally.
But it's so. What's I love what you're saying is that I remember that Sex and the City vibe. I remember talking to Elizabeth Warren in law school, saying I was going to be a Nick City dancer and a senator and president of the United States. Like there have been times in my life where I had full autonomy and agency, and what parenthood did was it took that autonomy away from me because of societal expectations. And so what's so beautiful about what you're saying, Mel, is that it didn't have to be that way. I didn't have to let a company humiliate me when they took away my direct reports. I did not have to believe that was my fault. I did not have to let my husband think that I was going to be the fulfiller of his smoothie needs. And I think that's the beauty of like reclaiming agency and autonomy, or realizing it never left, and that you're not, you know, like one of my favorite things to do is have women picture the school calling their phone, and having them not have a stress response in the visual, because men don't. When I would say, okay, I want you to close your eyes and picture the school is called 3 times, you know, how are you feeling? And they were like, what, for not returning the school's call? Like over and over again, men didn't even understand. And whereas women were reporting that they were feeling a stress response just even in the imagining of that scenario. So it would just be so nice to live like the other half of the population. And I think we can do that. I talk about that in Fair Play a lot, about being the man on the plane who I saw, you know, had the picture on his laptop of 3 kids. And then for 6 hours played Jenga and worked on a PowerPoint presentation. Didn't do one thing in service of his home, right? And so I feel that way now. You asked me where I am on the other side of the rainbow. I feel that way now. I feel the autonomy and not just because my kids are older. I mean, they have such emotional needs. And if you play the intensive parenting game, people go crazy on these college admission situations. But I feel autonomy in that every day I really feel like I can set my own schedule. Like I'm back in control of my time. And I think that was the biggest aha moment for me when it came to my real true boundary for where Fair Play came from, was knowing that I was willing to leave my marriage if my partner couldn't align with this message, which is, Seth, you have 3 hours after our kids go to bed to watch SportsCenter, finish a PowerPoint deck, exercise, and I'm doing things in service of our home till my head hits the pillow, which is 2 hours after you go to bed. And I'm not willing to live that way anymore. That was incredibly freeing because I believed it. that I was not willing to live that way anymore. And so, as you said earlier, Mel, it's like there is a middle ground. It doesn't have to just be court-ordered custody, which was 3 words that I put on a Post-it because so many women who were so empowered told me that was their solution, court-ordered custody. But it could be that fair play could be divorce for married people. There could be a system where men aren't entering care because I physically left them, but because my boundary is up. Mm-hmm. And that's been the beauty, what those boundaries now look like, and setting things for myself. And that's where the unicorn space, the fact that you do this podcast. And I will say, be greedy, do something else, continue to add, I can't believe I just did that experiences.
This is one of them, Eve. This is one.
Yeah, just keep adding those. The more you have them, the more oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin you get. That's what I learned from researching my second book, that you can get from mommy juice and you can get from edibles in short-term ways. What this podcast will allow those chemicals to linger in your brain a lot longer than if you just doom scrolled instead.
Yes.
For this hour.
I wrote down a quote from you somewhere. I might have been listening to a podcast or when I was reading, like, you have permission to be unavailable from your roles. And that just like, oh my gosh, I could feel just my soul deflating in the best way. Yes. And I am very passionate. I'm a special educator. So I'm very passionate about teaching that to my young boys because let's be honest, everything that we're talking about has to start with the foundational years. So when they get older, my boys are the ones writing the thank yous, right? Like that's the big picture goal. But on the M-Take, we frame it as like self-TLC, and that is the natural segue to your unicorn space, right? And why that's so important. And I want to make sure that we spend time talking about that. So a couple of different things. Why is it so important? And also, what is your unicorn space these days?
Okay, I will get to it. I want to say one more thing about how wonderful it is you're teaching your sons.
Yes.
I could say a lot of great things about my older son, about how he knows how to wipe a vagina from front to back for my daughter, and that he is a person of profound gratitude. He's also the kin keeper of our family. He's writing his college essay on the fact that he's the only one who talked to my brother, who's sort of a mean autistic man, but Zach does not want him to be alone, and how kindness is a discipline. So I will say, but I want to just bring up one thing about the next generation. I almost think I did a better job with my nephews than I did with my own sons too, because they're more willing to listen. I mean, I'm a broken record with my sons, but my nephew, he knows that I have one question for young men that tell me whether they're in a fair play household or not, or also whether women should date them. And that question is, what is the last gift you gave? So we were talking about this recently because I brought it up to one of Zach's new friends, and his answer was, oh, I think my mom got my friend a Nike gift card. Okay, that was one friend's answer. And Noah, we knew his answer because he's been indoctrinated in fair play. So what he tells these other boys, this is my nephew, is that his parents are divorced. His father had a stroke. This was it's my first cousin who's my best friend, but I call her my sister. So he's a little slower, his dad, to on the uptake. Not cognitively. I meant just like slower to do things. Not because of the stroke, just because he's just sort of slow. And he wants him to propose. Noah wants his dad to propose to his new girlfriend. My sister, my cousin, is remarried, and this woman's lovely. She's a wonderful person. And so what he decided to do to facilitate that was he signed up at his private school. It's a very elite private boarding school. He's 17. He signed up for the metallurgy elective, which is jewelry making. For those who didn't know, I didn't know what that exactly meant. And he spent the past semester, his capstone project was making an engagement ring for
Why am I crying? I know. Like I'm crying.
I know. I'm going to cry too.
That is so beautiful.
And I can even show you. He sent me some pictures of the tries. It took him 40 tries.
Oh my God.
I know.
That. 40?
I love this boy so much.
That's the done goal right there. Oh
That's what I mean. Look at these. He sent me. Those are some tries.
No.
That is so
of the different ones.
thoughtful and beautiful.
Yeah.
my-
And so I think those were the final products. So we can all cry, but to
Yeah.
me, that, like, if we can do that, like, if there are men
Yeah.
like that out there,
Yeah.
which there are, I'm not saying I take full credit for him, but I've been in his life a long time, and he really understands what emotional labor can mean, what that will do for her, what that will do for his father. I mean, like, these cards, if anything if we can have one takeaway from today, it's that these cards are our humanity.
Yeah.
They're not chores and housework, right? Where we're a zero-sum game, who's taking out the trash. These are our humanity. These are the memories we will have forever. And I think, not that jewelry making is Noah's unicorn space, but I think it segues into your question so beautifully, because I think when you do unicorn space well, it will make people cry. I think when you, and whether it's inspiring them, like I think about this woman who, because of the book, decided that she wanted to row across the Pacific Ocean. I mean, it's not something I would want to do, but the amount of emotional labor and the cards that her husband took on to allow her, and she has all the things against her, right? She's a yoga studio instructor, and she makes less money than her partner, and her partner works in an office, and she has a flexible job. All the things that would tell us that it shouldn't be her priority, as you said earlier, to be unavailable from her roles. She rowed across the Pacific Ocean with a team. She did it. And so we don't all have to be in the Pacific Ocean. But I think it is, and I can't believe I just did that moment, that is supported by a lot of times, if we're married to men, by the men in our lives. Or as my professor, Corinne Lowe, my good friend, says, or you divorce that man who wouldn't support you and marry a woman like she did. So she did that. She has a different fair play answer, but she got to fair play. She got to ownership by that way. But my point is that that's what a unicorn space is. It's there to inspire. It's there to make people cry. It's there to make yourself proud and cry on your own behalf. And that is what will sustain us through the hard times. Like you said earlier, Michelle, I think it was you who said, like, you're the dance in the rain person, not wait for the storm to pass.
Mm-hmm.
We're in such an uncertain time. That's why, Melissa, it's so interesting to me how people treat mothers returning to the workplace. Yeah. The only thing that someone has to do as a worker in 2026 is be able to handle uncertainty. The only people who know how to handle uncertainty are mothers. Like, that is it, right?
Literally.
It is just, so I think the idea that there are women out there who are willing to buck the trends, who are willing to ask for partnership. I don't mean just ask for help, for partnership in meeting their goals outside of their roles. Like, that's what I want us to be inspired in for our next decade.
Yes.
Like, just keep going, keep accumulating those experiences. Set a goal to do your one podcast episode on the top of Kilimanjaro. I don't care what the next leveling up is, but just keep going.
Thank you. One of the most fruitful part of this unicorn space is not only like talking to people like you, this is so inspiring, but just like we always say, like, we get to just like talk to people that like we never would like come across in our daily life. And that's amazing. You get to hear different stories and connect, and how incredible is that? But what you just said about our ability to be free from other roles and sit here and we hold ourselves accountable to like just do something that makes us happy and just be us. And I've never been taught any other way more powerfully than I have in this experience of what I'm capable of. And Michelle and I talk about it, but like all the time offline. I never would have known what I was capable of when I was inspired by something versus a job that I hold that I think energizes me.
Yeah.
And then it just forms this perspective of you're just like, I'm still doing the job and I'm happy to do it and it serves a purpose, but it's like, wow, like if this other job asked me to work even a quarter of how hard I work on this, I'd be like, oh my God, like, can you believe the overtime, the this, that?
Yep.
Here, I'm like, it's 2 a.m. and I'm editing and we're doing this and I'm like, I got to go to bed, but I don't want to. And it's just, it's so powerful to have a unicorn space that you believe in and to have it with someone. Ugh, I mean, that's the cherry on top.
It is. You have each other. I mean, that's the beauty. And I think the last thing I'll say, because I know we've gone over time, but I want to just end, and I value your time. You know, our times are diamonds.
Yes.
But I think when you realize that decentering men is the way to live, it is a very powerful thing. It's not that I don't love my husband. I love my sons, but the impact that my friends are having on my life right now is pretty number one. Like I would say, you know, I had to do a breast biopsy, and that was scary, you know, because it was over the holidays. That's just we can do another episode on women's health, but like public service announcement, like don't do like mammograms or MRIs like right before a holiday, because then you're like waiting for like weeks. But I had to do a breast biopsy, and then I called so many of my friends, you know, to sort of process fear of the uncertainty of the unknown, that I had to go back in my text and my phone to tell them the good news. And it was about 15 to 17 people that I had processed this scary situation for myself. And there was one I left out. And she was like, did you ever get the results back? And I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to tell Jody. But that was the support. That was the humanity. Again, Seth was there for me, of course. My sons were there for me. I was able to be with them. But your relationship here is priceless.
It really
Sure
is.
is.
It reminds me, and this is such a pertinent tie-in. You know the movie A Wonderful Life?
Yes.
It's a Wonderful Life. And Clarence makes the quote at the end of the movie. He says, remember, no man is a failure who has friends, but we need to revise that. Is no man or no woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
No women first or man is a failure who has friends. And that is just a beautiful, beautiful takeaway for the unicorn space, for fair play. It goes with friendships too. It's so vital. So sending you all of the love that you need to process.
I think the way we all reacted to, I've been doing a whole social series on gifts, but the way we all reacted to Noah, like so organically, I still feel like I'm crying from it. Please.
My 5-year-old this year for Christmas, he's like, well, I don't want just Santa to give us gifts. I want us all to give gifts to each other. And he told my husband, I want to get mom a visual timer that's a rainbow because I like rainbows. And he's like, because I think she's really sick of saying, hey, Google, timer off. And I use it every damn day.
Oh my God. I want this.
It's amazing.
I'm always saying like off.
It's a little
the amount of
visual.
alarms that oh my gosh.
Death by timer.
Death by timer. Yes. But I'll give you one anecdote. I love that. I was actually in a red light pod yesterday. Speaking of self-care, which is not unicorn space, but I was in a red light pod yesterday. My fucking alarm went off.
Oh, no.
5 minutes into the red light pod. And I'm like naked in the pod, like, and my phone is all the way over on the side of the room. I'm like, do I spend the next 15 minutes listening to this alarm, or do I push off and get out of this bed? And I just stayed and listened to the alarm for 15 minutes.
Just meditate to it.
Meditate to it. Yeah. But please send me by email the rainbow. It will be in honor of your son. May he continue to practice emotional labor and gift giving. And thank you to your husband for allowing him to CPE. You know, he owned that with your son. Yeah. So I appreciate him so much. And also that you have people in your life who are supportive of you sharing yourself with the world like that, with this type of honesty.
Yeah. Oh, Eve, we are so
big
grateful.
Hugs. Yes.
Oh my
goodness.
Hugs. Thank you so incredible.
Of course.
Was a dream come true, truly. We will link everything in the show notes as always. And I'm operating on the pretense that everyone knows who the hell you are. But just in case anyone doesn't, where can people find you before we hop off?
I love it. Definitely put us in the show notes. I think it's important that people understand that Fair Play is a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. We started off as an offshoot of Hello Sunshine, and now we're a policy institute. So you can find us at fairplaypolicy.org.
Great.
we are not here for you to have to buy anything. If you can't afford any of these tools or resources, we will send them to you. You can find all the checklists and the tools and the cards for you to print and download on that Policy Institute website. There's FAQs. So we want everybody to be able to access these tools. We do believe they're game changing, and so we want them to be free. So, and if any questions come up, we get lots of questions. My social team is great. I'm going to have her reach out for our clip of us talking about Noah.
You got it.
Just she answers all our DMs. Maybe that's how you even came to us, but she gets them all eventually.
Well, thank you so much. This was incredible. You all know where to find us at the MTake Podcast on Instagram and YouTube. This was wonderful. We're just, thank you.
Over the moon.
Thank you.